the process is as open and transparent as possible. So that's that. So I'll do my best to answer all of your questions today straight away. But if there is anything that I'm not sure of, I'll take it on notice and we will pop the question and the answer online in our frequently asked questions section of the call within 24 hours, so by the end of the day tomorrow. So you'll be able to find out there. So I would like to open up to any questions. I'd like to keep it pretty casual, so I think probably we'll start by just jumping in and asking questions, and if it gets a bit chaotic, we might use hands up, but we'll see how we go to start with. So anyone got any questions to start? Kick us off.
I'll go, Emma.
Yep, thanks, James.
What's the time frame of this open call? Did I miss that somewhere, or is it detailed there?
So do you mean when submissions are due?
No, the actual length of time
of the project. Yeah, so we don't actually specify the length of the project, but in terms of the agronomy targets, I guess that the targets are for the next 5 years, but it will depend project to project. So you might be looking at one component of that, and if that could be completed more quickly and efficiently, then obviously we would favour that. We're always looking to make sure that we're being provided with the best value for money, and part of that is making sure that projects are efficient. So we wouldn't want to see a project lasting for 5 years when it could be completed in 3 years. But if you can justify and provide reason why it needs to be 5 years or however long, then we'll also consider that.
Great, thanks.
No worries. Any other questions?
Following on from that sort of timeline question, in the open call document, it's got the preliminary research proposal is due on 5 p.m. Monday, the 21st of November. Mm-hmm. But then the intended completion date of evaluation is a date before that date on the 7th of November.
Oh. Okay, so we will be assessing the PRPs. I think it's on the 6th of December, so I probably meant to put in the 7th of December rather than the 7th of November. So apologies for that, and we will update that on the website. Good pick up, Rhiannon.
It was Courtney who picked it up for us, but
well done, Courtney. Attention to detail. Any other questions, please?
Can you hear me, Emma?
Yes, I can hear you, Paul.
Great, thank you. Looking at the third one for the priority one, mm-hmm. Quantify customer quality requirement and communicate related agronomy impact to farmers. Do I get the right interpretation, which is about once we know what the consumer wants or end user wants, we need to go back to the farmers and tell them this is the potential product and the quality we want, and how can you produce, and have a discussion with them around, how can they produce it?
Yeah, Paul, I think it's more making sure that the research outcomes are deliverable to growers, and that the way that they're framed are targeted to growers so that they can understand how to apply those, that understanding around customer requirements to their production system, and how to achieve those requirements while they're producing hay.
Well, I guess one part is about communicating back. It's just a matter of going back to the farmers and talk to them, have workshop, etc., for example. But another side is actually the agronomy side about how can we produce that. Is that actually part of this or not?
Yeah, I would suggest that it is, because we don't want it just to be, the customer wants X, Y, and Z requirements without being able to go back to growers and tell them how to achieve that, or give
Okay.
them some guidance anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So a bit of both. And another question, quick one, is on the priority 2, which is about life cycle assessment. There's a little sentence here somewhere says I'll find that. Okay, from farm to the end customer.
Yeah.
In this case, who is the end customer?
Sorry, what was the question? Who's the end customer?
Yes, the second last sentence you put there for priority 2.
Yeah, so we really want to make sure that we're capturing the export process. And then, I guess the end customer is who's buying it in country, just so that we make sure we capture that process as well.
Yeah, okay, well, that's good. Who is buying? Basically the importer.
Yeah, I think so. It probably would get a bit messy to define an end consumer after that point, but yeah.
I agree. Okay, thanks for that.
Any more questions?
Hi, I had, oops, sorry.
Yeah, go, Alexander, and then I'll come to you, Blakely.
I just had a question about the administration side. What do you expect is the difference between the preliminary and full research proposals?
So when you go into K2, which is our project management system, so you'll submit the proposal via K2. So there's a really specific form that you'll fill out, and that form varies between the preliminary research proposal stage and the full research proposal stage. So the preliminary research proposals are really around, making sure that we can understand the broader concept of the project, and then the full research proposal will really dive into the details of the methodology.
Yep, makes sense. Thank you.
No worries. Blakely?
I was just going to follow up on the question around quality, because we actually don't have a quality target. Every company has a different quality process. And so it's, obviously you can talk broadly about what might happen to NDF or might happen to WSCs, but again, we've got different companies setting up the digestibility of dry matter, and someone's using Dairy One and someone else is using New South Wales DPI and blah, blah, blah. So again, not having a set of quality targets which everyone shares makes it difficult to relate your work exactly to, because there's 40 quality targets potentially out there, and are we required to measure all 40 of them, or what are the key quality targets that we're required to ensure that we measure in these research trials, so that everyone's providing you with the same level of detail. And obviously then there's the different labs that offer the different and we don't know, obviously there's no current ring test, I don't believe, between the labs as to whether all the labs are reporting the same values off the same standard sample. So that doesn't matter what lab you go to in terms of your product. So yeah, just around the nuances of quality in the hay industry, and the expectations of AgriFutures in terms of what we should be reporting against.
Yeah, I think this is kind of more related to the importing country or customer requirements rather than the exporter requirements. So, and this is partly because we don't already understand what those requirements are. So that target around quantifying customer quality requirements would be around, understanding what that importer wants. So it is around that kind of scoping or to quantify what the key targets are. So it's kind of going back a step for that specific point.
But if you relate it back to the work that the various businesses are going to propose, what is the minimum data set that's required to be collected from a quality perspective to be put forward? Because obviously, if you just want NDF and ADF and water soluble coal budget, that's a certain level of cost in doing that. But if you want CNCPS type quality traits, then that's another layer. So what's the expectation from AgriFutures as to the minimum data set that's required, and then what's and what you'd be hoping if the bucket was big enough?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the research project that's being proposed, but in other cases we have suggested that it's a CNCPS or CNCPS equivalent type test in terms of feed quality. But if it's if you're just looking at, I guess, part of the project is just looking at yield, then you're obviously not going to, go that deep into the CNCPS. So it will rely on your expertise, the researcher's expertise as well, to, justify the level of, I guess, quality analysis that's completed as part of the project. And that will be part of the, I guess, the advantage of having the preliminary research proposals and then the full research proposals is that we can provide some of that feedback between the preliminary and full research proposals. So I guess that will give us an opportunity to have a look at the scope of the project and then give some feedback as to whether we think the level of testing suggested is appropriate. Any other questions? I can't see everybody on the screen, so if I haven't noticed you put your hand up, please just shout out. Courtney?
I guess I'm just following on a little bit from what Blakely just mentioned about the quality. So obviously the first key target is to increase hay yields while maintaining quality. Since I wasn't able to attend the forum because I was sick, were there particular quality parameters that they're talking about maintaining? Because obviously those are the things we need to target.
Yeah, no, we sort of didn't get into that detail, but I think the quality parameters that have been reported previously, if they're consistent with that, then that would be good. And if people are still unsure, it would be worth chatting to a few of the exporters to get some industry insights onto what they're valuing.
I thought that was pretty clear, Emma, at the forum, was that it depends on the market that they're pushing into and what they've got, they'll find a market to push it into. So,
well, yeah, that's true.
That was the overwhelming message that I took in for sure.
Yeah, thanks for that, James.
But then going back to that question, it makes it hard then, because one exporter wants green, one exporter wants WSCs, and another exporter wants rate of change digestibility in the rumen after 30 hours. So they're not the same measures. And so because we don't have that consistency, I suppose I'm trying to think, we get some guidelines as to what key traits are, if we're going to measure quality, what are the key traits that we need to have? Because, obviously, if I'm doing research in Victoria, I've got my plants there might only focus on one set of traits because their businesses. If I'm in South Australia or WA, I've got different set of potential customers. So when we talk about maintaining quality, we don't actually have a benchline target to saying, okay, we need to be, are we achieving this level or that level? We can look at trends. So yes, if we did something, you can put this trait up or down, but we can't necessarily, if you're in the grains industry, then you need to be a certain protein window to achieve a market. We don't have those benchmarks in which we should be aiming for, and it'd be nice to have some agreed benchmarks that everyone can say, okay, these are the benchmarks I need to be working on, and we can work from there.
So likely, I guess, wouldn't you have kind of expected quality parameters for each of the varieties? And then, you can understand whether those quality parameters are maintaining with increased biomass production or whether they're reducing.
I mean, yeah, you've got, so you know what the trend is going to be if you change a performance in a variety. But again, not everyone, like the targets are changing from business to business. So if I'm in an area where it's really greenness, if I go to 8 tonnes and all I do is change greenness, improve greenness, that's a bonus, right? But I might have stuffed up water soluble carbohydrates in doing that. So for that client or that exporter, they're not worried so much about WSCs, whereas another business will go, I don't worry about the greenness per se. I'm really interested in stem thickness and the water soluble carbohydrates. So what's your target? What's your minimum? Because if I'm above the minimum and I go from 6 to 8 tonnes, then it doesn't really matter. But if I'm going from 6 to 8 tonnes, I drop below the minimum value. That's I haven't maintained quality, but I don't know what my minimum is what I'm saying. In terms of like, we have some things that we work on, but it's not necessarily, not every business that's on the table today is operating under the same benchmark effectively for the conversation. So my question is the benchmark important? Is there a benchmark we can work with so that everyone on the table has the same guidelines to work with, or is it potluck in some respects?
I think it's more like coming back to what James said, where we can. I don't think that it does. I don't think a benchmark exists because all the companies are looking for something different, and we can push out, or they can push out different products to different markets. So I would be looking at that trend, sort of being able to, maintain quality in terms of like what you would expect from that particular variety, as well as improve biomass.
Some guide on the greenness measure would be good. We talk about greenness all the time, but is there a magic number we're trying to get above with our Minolta readings, or?
I don't have an answer for that, sorry. I might take that one on notice and ask a few people. Any other questions?
It's very much a buyer preference rather than an animal preference, surely.
The greenness, yes, I would say so. Yeah.
Whereas the other metrics, we've got science around in terms of production, but there's a lot of emphasis on the greenness, but yeah.
Yeah. Blakely, another question?
So given that the hay harvest again affected in the East Coast, and the bucket size available for R&D, because if you look at the scope of this tender, I'm suggesting that there's probably 4 times the amount of money looking to be sought than is available, and trying to get some idea of the scope of the bucket that we're all competing for, in terms of how the types of projects that you might put forward and the scope of them.
We'll be back next year, Blakely.
What was that?
Hope so.
That's this year.
So we never really give a price because we want projects to demonstrate value for money. So if we set a project budget of $500,000, then most projects will come in at $499,000, $100,000, sorry. Yeah, so it's really around demonstrating value for money, and then you know, if in the PRP stage we're worried that the scope is too big, but we like the concept, then we'll give advice to you know, I guess bring it back in a bit.
I have an additional question. So in outcome 1, there's a lot of work around literature, reviewing and developing integrated agronomic guidelines. And then there's a separate tender to this tender, which is all about extension and communication. So what I'm trying to get a handle on is the level of overlap between those two tenders in terms of the expected outcomes. Is to, you know, is communication really meant to be in this tender, or is it meant to be in the second or the other tender system that you have going at the same time?
So yeah, so we do like all of our projects to be keeping extension and communications in mind, so that, you know, any data or outcomes produced lend themselves towards extension. But we will have an extension project that will do a lot of that direct communication with growers and exporters. So yeah, so the outcome or outputs of this type of work would really would like them to be kind of in a format that's ready for the extension project to pick it up, maybe modify it a little bit, and then take that out to industry. So there is a little bit of overlap, but we want to make sure that you know, these types of projects aren't kind of producing something that's way left of field, and then, you know, we have to spend a whole heap of time creating a message for growers and exporters as well. Any other questions?
Yeah, can I ask a question about priority 2, the life cycle analysis?
Yep, sure thing, Scott.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether it's limited to greenhouse gases only. I would have thought that ozone depleting gases are pretty important as well, given the use of methyl bromide for treating export hay, etc. Would that be considered favourable to add that in, or is it completely outside of the scope of that particular project?
I think if you can provide justification for the inclusion of that type of thing, then that would definitely be considered. I'm definitely not an expert in that area, so yeah, I'll be getting someone else to help me assess those. But yeah, would lean on the researchers' expertise in kind of justifying whether we need to include that type of thing in the project.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries.
Emma, do you sort of envisage that there would be a number of research projects here that would be delivered, ideally linked as much as they could or need to be, but then the extension project would be a sort of a standalone type concept, or is that got a view on that, or not really?
So yeah, well, part of the reason for having the session today was to provide all of you guys on the screen to an opportunity to chat to each other and potentially collaborate. So yeah, I would like to see, you know, as much of this work kind of linked in with each other as possible. and you know, that helps to create value for money as well if you can leverage trial sites and that kind of thing. But then in terms of working with the extension project, it would be a standalone project, but we will expect whoever's providing the extension project to link in with the researchers that are doing this type of work and the rest of the work across the program, to make sure that they understand what's going on in those projects so that they can be delivering messages and updates to the industry about what's happening in those projects. Any other questions? If we don't have any more questions, I'm happy to kind of open it up to you guys if anyone wants to kind of, I guess, ask about collaboration or, you know, potential co-location of trial sites or any of those kinds of ideas. We really encourage, we do understand that it's a really big portfolio of work that we're asking for, and like Blakely said before, there is a limited bucket of money. So we do encourage you, and you don't have to do it in this forum, but yeah, do encourage you to try and work together where possible and practical to make sure that you're providing value for money for the program. And, you know, we don't want to have, you know, 10 different trial sites, all sort of, that could have maybe been linked together and, you know, save a bit of money in that sense. So, yeah, if there is opportunities to link together, I know it's not always practical, but we would really encourage that. But maybe this isn't the platform that you want to discuss it. Okay, well, that's totally fine. Does anyone else have any questions? But otherwise, we might wrap it up. If you do think of any more questions between now and I think, what is it, the 21st of November, when submissions are due, please send them through to Peyton, so peyton.morfitt@agrifutures.com.au. That Peyton's information's on the webpage. So once we get the question through, we will answer that and put the question and the answer on the website. And Alison, I will get back to you on the greenness, well, back to everybody on the greenness guide. So I'll put that up in the frequently asked questions section before the end of the day tomorrow. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for your time. I hope it's been helpful, and yeah, really looking forward to receiving your proposals.
Thank you.
No
Thanks,
worries.
Anna.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right.